another piece of news around Entebbe Road, around Entebbe, in area called Chigugu Central, Zinderi. So this area here, we see a small piece of report that China to take over Uganda Entebbe International Airport. This is a very old news, but now for sure, right now Ugandans have forgotten about this news. Actually, they still don't know from that point, that time when it was, this piece of news was reported. Up to now, even I don't know what is going on, but for sure, such news should not be forgotten. They talked about China taking over Uganda International Airport for default debt repayment, but China has rejected Uganda's request to renegotiate toxic clause in that. $200 million loan picked 6 years ago for the airport expansion. The airport is the only international airport in the country. Yeah, that is true. It is the only one. Though Uganda is trying to create more airports around, but all we know, actually, if anyone wants to come to Uganda, the only thing they know is what? Is the Entebbe International Airport. We hear of Hoima, we hear of Soroti, we hear of other airports that are coming up, but according to what we know, we only have one airport, but again, it was functioning before, but then right now it is being improved, and the investment is done, but not on Ugandan money. Uganda has so much minerals and all that we could sell and get money to refurbish our airport. Unluckily enough, we are depending on the big powers like China to come and put money, and on top of that, they end up taking over that we have failed to pay as Uganda, or the government of Uganda has failed to pay their debts. So this piece of news it made rounds in Africa, in the whole internationally, and for sure right now it is forgotten because no one is talking about it, no one is reminding Ugandans about it. So this one, let's look at the source. Someone from X made this reported about this. That is Tanzania Digest. Tanzania Digest reported about this piece of news, and I'm sure, to tell you the truth, that people, so many people managed to make so many comments about it. We have Sandeep, I think it's an Indian origin, is saying that he was surprised at so many pro-Russian handlers trying to sell a strategic asset, taking over as a simple commercial takeover. So this was a small surprise to this Indian small guy. Then we also have other comments like from Michael J. Kelly. See what China wants for developing countries with fragile economies. Belt and road sets and ruthless debt trap. When some countries are unable to service their loan, China trades debt for equipment, airports, power plants, and communication. This comment for this guy is relevant, but again, it is just the bad practice that we have as Uganda government that causes all these problems. Because I'm sure personally, as for me, Steven, I would not think China has that ambition to take over something if it is done with initial respect. At the same time, both parties fulfill their agreements. Let's say if China agreed we are going to make this airport like this, and then we are supposed to gain this, then Uganda also says, make for us the airport, you will gain this, and both sides are fulfilled whatever they have discussed, whatever they have agreed on. We would not reach up to this extent. So what he mentioned about a debt trap, it is somehow true, but again, it is not really that trap. I'm thinking it is just the bad governance that we have that puts us to this trap, because you cannot say you extend a hand for help they help you, but now even the little resources that you have that will help in other areas, you waste it. But if you had put the little resources you have that will make the airport, then you put in other areas, by the time these people are done with the airports, you find that the money that you invest in other areas can still make you be a gentleman and fulfill your agreement point. So that part, the point of Michael J on this small piece of news about the airport, I will welcome it, but I've given my opinion of that. Then also, let's look at what Conscious Carol this is from Kenya. Conscious Carol. So he's saying that fixation on the colonialism of the past has made the blind to the colonialism of the present. Yes, people think there was colonialism before. Yes, it was there. But again, they don't know that there is colonialism now. Actually, we call it nowadays, we call it neo-colonialism, like colonialism after colonialism, but in a soft way, like with soft power. What do I mean by soft power? I come, I offer you service or help or in any form, let's say, in any form with conditions. Now, with that condition, someone gets advantage to press their commands, to press their what they want, demands and all that. So that's how a person is colonized again, a country is colonized again, a president is compromised, and we are all just slaves in the country, but then we have nothing to do about it. That is the point. Then I'm saying thank you guys for being here. Thank you.
No, that one I cannot organize for the truck to go with it. In fact, I thought that is the one that you gave us, but now you people gave say I did not know.
Even I just fell into the trap.
So no, that one I can arrange. No, I but you see from what I can do and
also
that one it is okay.
So let's go back to our
because he's here with your story.
Around the same area, same period, we have a small piece of news around this area, Kisiro. Let's look at a small piece of news that made rounds around the whole world about Uganda. We have a piece of news in Kisiro. So in Kisiro, by that time, 3 years ago, 2 suspected ADF fighters arrested Kisiro refugee camp. I think by look of this, these pangas, the nyodo, the hammers, these are all weapons of mass destruction. It can kill the whole village. But then there were only 2 ADF arrested around Kisoro. Let's look at Kisoro. Kisoro is around, is in Uganda. Kisoro is in Uganda around. This is Uganda, almost at the border of Uganda, Congo. So Congo, Rwanda, yeah, around the border. That is where Kisoro is found. Now Kisoro, it's in the village of Kanyabukungu. In Kisoro Road, this is where the incident happened. A few ADF, I think from Congo, they crossed the border and came to this village in Kisoro. Actually, it is basically on the border. Yeah, they came to this village with all these weapons, and they did a lot of damages to the natives around that area. Let's look at this, more reports about this. 2 suspects were arrested around that camp. So what did the people say? But this look like building materials. Ndaba emyeko, echuma, echifuwa, oluyinja, echisululu. So this guy is seeing it the way he's seeing, but those are weapons, they can destroy a human life. Then also if we look at other sources, other people. It's comment. We have Venachi. It's saying some of those items look to be for construction. Yeah, anyway, I think the mind of these people are thinking maybe these people are just posing this weapon. But for me as a person, I would say maybe these are real weapons. But maybe these ADF are really arrested there. Let's see what other people say. So Innocent is saying that there is no, this is not true. Please lies with the authority for accurate report. So Innocent is saying it's not true. And then other people are saying terrorists in Uganda equipped with masonry material. Anyway, I don't know whether ADF can really come, but I think it's possible to come, leave guns at the border and come and blend with the locals and then use the local equipment to masquerade people. But some sources, some people are saying that it is just a small operation of UPDF in some local villages around Uganda to scare Ugandans. I don't know what that is, but I think, let's see what this other Rubanken Felix Geoffrey is saying. It is true that ADF still exists. I thought our country is now free from such, but instead it is not free from corruption.
So we'll talk.
Yeah, okay.
Let me go home one. I'm so tired.
Ken is talking about corruption being the business. There is a small disbelief of Uganda that ADF really may not exist, but I think corruption is what causes all these things. Every government official owns a tall house in Kampala, not minding of renovating school hospitals. So the people are thinking Ugandans are the government is confusing people, confusing men and women of Uganda and other nations with such incidences of this kind, small operation, get hands in such discipline, mastermind and confuse Uganda with some piece of news. So this made rounds around the whole world, but I think Ugandans are giving their views.
But I don't know how people
So some other person, Musa Muhana, said, guys, stop fooling Uganda. Like he said, he's feeling some kind of confusion, like the government is fooling Uganda with fake news, but to cover up their corruption, things like that. You know, Uganda is battling with a big chunk of corruption, businesses, corruption everywhere, in politics, in economics, in the bank, in the home, in the village, everywhere. Let me just say, even in general social life, someone moving around and feel like this guy is corrupt. It's a high, hello. That is recipe
From the channel to the
high.
No, but from the
Then
channel
we
to
also
the
have
is also
Agnes.
Let me see.
Agnes. So that is what came out. Let's look at other small piece of news that came around.
Because I don't want to give other people a job when I have my people work with them.
Yes.
That's why but you know the problem and what I faced that and
what happened
for export.
3 years ago.
Give them the
This
job,
is also a territorial police in Soroti
so and
City.
it makes my client to look for
The territorial police in Soroti City investigating the shooting
you know there is
death
somebody
of a
over there.
police officer in Maron quarters on Tuesday night. That was 3 years ago. I think a small piece of evidence in the photo is here. But this happened in Soroti. Let's see where Soroti, where exactly. It's Soroti. This is the whole area of Soroti, Amuria and all that. Then we have it happened actually in the city. The city area we have
from here where we can.
the road, we have around this area. That's where this news happened. And yes, it happened around this area. A bit aside that, near Kennedy Square.
From here to Indiana is 6, 8, 6, yeah? plus 86 because you are going. Yeah?
So this
come back.
piece of news made rounds around the world. People saw it and TV reported about it, but of course people have stopped talking about it. But this is a serious case where you see a police officer is dead. The investigation went, but still no answer. Because if we look at it properly, this is in Soroti, reported in Soroti, but there are so many police officers that are dead that are reported in Kampala area, like people like Kawesi and others. They are gone like that. The investigation happened, they arrested some suspects. Up to now, those suspects are still in the jail. And up to now, no Ugandan knows what happened. What happened to those police officers in uniform who are dead? The investigation goes on and then it just disappears. No result at all. So that happened in Soroti. Let's see what is this. Something made round. Some small news about Uganda, Rwanda. US France made rounds around Uganda, like let's say this piece of news, this one here. Remember, you guys saw when the M23 in Congo happened to attack, to make advances within Congo, support of Rwanda, people alleging that it's support of Rwanda. Yes, but I think it's support of Rwanda. Some things happen. Because that is true. You don't get from nowhere. There are so many hands that go in and make it happen. But then you come around that KO and the civilian war and the fighting and the killing in Congo, the French, US, Rwanda, and Uganda and Kenya embassies in the Democratic Republic of Congo, capital Kinshasa, it was attacked by Protestants. A European diplomat says this, but this was sourced by a European diplomat. Now, by just the mention of Uganda in this news, we are trying to see line the chain of the countries that as Congolese citizens are thinking maybe having a small piece of land, they are suffering in their war and all that. So let's say this was sourced by, let's say who reported about this. Reported, this is RT News, RT News. This they reported that embassies attacked in Congo capital. But once he is that unrest this war that was going on. But this protest by the Congolese citizens, it went on and they happened to burn the embassy of France, USA, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya. All these embassies were burnt in Kenya, but with a view that they really had a hand in it, in that conflict. So the diplomats added, this European diplomats added that the Protestants did not enter the French and US embassy. Why? But it may not have an answer. But the Ugandan embassy was raided, things were broken, so many equipment and other things were burned. So meanwhile, the Red Cross voiced alarm over the risk that fighting in the side city of Goma, remember, could cause a sample of Ebola and other pathogens held in the environment to escape. So they had some kind, there are some chemical laboratory in Congo, Goma and all that, so they were being kind of, Red Cross were being cautious. Then the international committee of the Red Cross is very concerned about the situation. Then this is basically the common, the locals, how they were, their life is going on and all that. So Rwanda backed M23 rebels marched in Goma, they did, and they captured the city. And then some kind of humanitarian situation in around Goma remain extremely worrying. That is true. That is as reported by really close. So that piece really, that small piece of the news moved around the world and enlightened Uganda as one of the countries that had a small hand in that conflict in Congo. So let's look at the small news that involved Uganda. We talked about Uganda. We have this. 7 months ago, Egypt chief of staff meets with Uganda Defense Force commander. What did they talk about? Egypt and Uganda. Okay, let's see what happened. What did they say? What they talk about and all that. This, I think this happened in Uganda. Yeah, this happened in Uganda, but of course it's forgotten. But let's see what did the so-called chief of military one, chief of defense force commander. That is what was. What did they say? He went on and said, "Thank you, General Macarena, the chief of staff of Egypt. We thank you for your dedication in strengthening defense cooperation and fostering friendship between Uganda and Egypt. Your leadership continues to build stronger ties for mutual security and prosperity." That is according to Muhoozi, but let's see what Ugandans talked about. I did not know Egypt was a joker too. That is how Ugandans look at it, of course. Being that the general or the commander of the armed forces of Uganda is seen as a joker because of the characteristics, because of the way he does things, and also because of the anger and the kind of picture they portray the Ugandans, they are kind of a bit falling down in my opinion. So another Uganda is called Basoga informed them. He would say that we in Uganda, but mostly your Muslim brothers, are suffering with that so-called General Muhoozi, just as you in Egypt suffered with holding Mubarak and family. So this guy, Basoga, is trying to compare the situation of Uganda and the situation of Egypt. If Egypt is trying to extend a hand, the armed forces of Egypt extending a hand with the armed forces of Uganda, like in commander level, yet Uganda is having its own problem. People are suffering under its regime, and yet also in Egypt is nearing places like Gaza, Israel, and other Arab countries that are having problem with defense corporations. I think this Basoga guy is really trying to range out, like to bring out his comparison, that why would Egypt go all the while, though it is an African country, but it is kind of like an Arab brotherhood with the Middle East. But being that Israel, we have there the Gaza and all that Palestinians, they are really suffering. If that example would be looking appealing to the whole world, it would be appealing that Egypt would be extending or strengthening military cooperation in that level of commander with the so-called Palestinians, so that at least if the power balance can be there, and then Israel can have a small limit towards its aggression to the Gaza people. But extending it to Uganda, I mean, to Muhoozi, what will Muhoozi really go and do? Okay, I'm not saying that, okay, being both Uganda and Egypt are all African countries, but I would wish if Egypt would have an impact with the Palestinians, the Gaza people, than having an impact in Uganda. Of course, when we are also having our own challenges with the armed forces of Uganda, with the regime itself. So that is Basoga, who spoke his mind. We have another person, Baganda. Basoga went on and talked so many things about Muhoozi and the whole issue thing, but then we also have Baganda. Why is Egyptian politicians running around Ethiopia but can't face Ethiopia directly? But I appreciate this question. Really, Egyptians, they have they really, Egyptians over the years, Ethiopians over the years, everything of theirs remained original, like all kind of colonization came and they survived it, they survived all kind of things. But of course, if Egyptians, politicians are running around Ethiopia but cannot face Ethiopian directly, it's because Egyptians are no joke, but other countries can be a joke because of the regime and the kind of colonization and the new colonization and dependency that they have toward them to other countries. So, I would say this is well thought of a comment, but of course what we call hypocrisy. So that is small piece of news that made rounds around the world about Uganda. With the commandatory meetings and all that. Let's look at other piece of news that probably made the rounds. We have talked about all that. Let's see what did USA say about Uganda for sure. Let's see. Okay, USA. 7 months ago, the U.S. State Department targets Uganda police force officials due to their involvement in the gross violation of human rights, namely torture and crucial, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment. Okay, this is a comment from USA 7 months ago. Let's see the source. What did they say more about that? This was reported by Stephen Harman. Stephen Harman reported this, and then what did Ugandans say about this? We have a person called Cartel. Have you met my friend Cartel? Okay, that is a small piece of comment, but then Stephen made this comment, but then also yeah, he's a relevant person in US, but the news made rounds only that Ugandan didn't pick much interest into it. So I would say, in my opinion, State Department of United States targeting Uganda police. This is very obvious, looking at what the kind of life we are in Uganda. The Ugandan police can no longer defend human rights because it is overpowered by the UPDF, and which is not supposed to be a good thing. So it causes a lot of violations of rights, violation of so many things, all kinds of rights. Let it be traffic, let it be civilian social life, let it be economical life, like what I'm talking about is, let's say, in the markets, in the roads, in everywhere. So where Ugandan police would enforce and they protect Ugandans. And by the way, the training of Ugandan police and UPDF are totally different. You find that Ugandan police is supposed by constitution be trained to protect, to have mercy, to look out for Ugandan rights and all that kind of social well-being. But now if it is taken over and overpowered by UPDF, which is trained to kill, trained to do what? To defend the country from enemies. But now if it is overpowering Ugandan police, which is supposed to defend the Ugandans, and this UPDF is trained to see an enemy and destroy. So whenever it sees a Ugandan who is dissatisfied of the government ways of conducting business, that person becomes an enemy, and what happens next? Violation. They violate that person's right. That person is beaten up, broken, or sometimes killed, or sometimes thrown in jail. Like there's no order of operation. Like that's what actually this person was trying to report from USA. He named these things like human rights, torture, being cruel, being human, but of course these things are seen by cameras. But I'll give a big credit with the movement, the people power movement of the National Unity Platform that brought the power. I mean, like, boosted the power of camera. Like, it became like the biggest weapon, like bigger than tanks, bigger than bullets, bigger than all that. Like, a normal person can have a small piece of a device like a phone and takes a picture or a video, and yes, it becomes a threat, but it is very strong weapon. So it is kind of helping a bit and exposing this human. Of course, without the cameras people use not to see such things, they could be waiting for small piece of news like this to be mentioned from the USA, from other countries, from maybe the important media houses like say MTV, Daily Monitor, MBS. But of course, we know that all these news channels were being suppressed by the regime. That's why whenever a news is to come out, it is suppressed or edited or censored, that it becomes useless within a day and it disappears. You cannot make rounds even within one day or 1 hour. So even the local people may not know what is happening. But of course, right now we have cameras, we have phones, we have social media, we have TikTok, we have other platform that a person captures and posts. So that is kind of a bit of a relief for Uganda, like a safe haven. But this so-called punishment, mistreatment, humane, it is existing in Uganda. So this really was a very important piece of news, made rounds around the world about Uganda, but then it was very important. So this person reported this from USA. This is USA, around Washington. Yeah. He made this specifically came around Washington. Washington DC. So around Washington, there are so many news about Uganda. Let's look at this one. Let's look at this. This is it. Around 3 years ago, U.S. imposes travel ban. U.S. imposes travel sanction on Uganda military intelligence chief Major General Abel Kandiho for alleged human rights abuses. Yeah, this all rotates around the human rights and conduct of the army, the UPDF, the police, and other local agencies. So that piece of news also came reported from US. We also have another small piece of news. The USA says that it is ready and willing to assist Uganda with its Ebola outbreak. That was around the time of Ebola. So with that Ebola news, we made rounds, and that time Uganda was still having they were still having small relationship with the US that would allow them to receive some kind of special assistance in terms of grants, aid. Actually, US aid was still operational in Uganda. Though right now it is closed, no longer operating. We have another small piece of news from United States. So this one, we've already looked at it. Let's check on the other last one, maybe about the money. I think State Department imposes a sanction on 5 current and former Uganda officials for their involvement in massive corruption cases or gross human rights violation. So really, this piece of news around the world, most Ugandans got to know about it, though some few didn't know from the local villages. By that, this is around a year ago. TikTok was just catching up, and also, yeah, this happened. But the so-called human rights violation and corruption is a very serious case in Uganda, and it is in massive. Like, it is in massive. So almost the whole officials of Uganda government is corrupt. It's having violate human rights. So this was a piece of news that's very important to Uganda and the rest of the world. It's an alarm. So I think with that, maybe let's look at a year ago. We have a small piece of news of earthquake around which village? Around the Yumbe. This is Uganda. Yumbe district. Yumbe district is found around the within the border of Uganda and South Sudan. Moyo district, we have Koboko, Yumbe, and all that. So around mountains, K Central Reserve, some earthquake killed over like 25 people in Uganda. So, that one was a small piece of to go to summarize with it, we have a small piece of news on this. Uganda launches air and artillery raid against ADF in DRC Congo. That was 3 years ago. The Congolese government confirmed operation of airstrike and artillery fire from Uganda against armed forces armed group blamed for Kampala attacks. That was 3 years ago, and it happened. Operation went through. We saw people like Andrew Menda from military combat going to Congo. There's an operation why it's called Suja. So things happened in Uganda that made around news around the world. Today we have really looked around this small summary of it. I think thank you guys for taking time to join, and maybe we can go through your comments. If you have to say something, we can look into it. We can talk. I can look into your comments. At least we have done some small bit of updates. Let's look at the comments that you have and all that. I think yeah, that's the few important updates that went around around that made news all over the world about Uganda and its operations. But of course, right now there are so many things going on in Uganda politically. We have our President Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, and it's really ready to stand strong and support Ugandans through the next election, and also take down the dictator Museveni. So we are very hoping, we are so hopeful in Uganda. We are very happy with the process vote. I'm also going to say that all Ugandans, come 2026, go to the poll, vote, remain there, and protest from there. Fight for the vote, make sure it is not stolen, it is well counted, and you're there. Then also, there is the main important aspects that our President Robert Chagulanyi talked about on NBS of recently, about Gari, things like other opponents like the oppositions, and also about the Ugandan government. We take it as Ugandan, but we appreciate him for being bold on live TV and say he is still ready for the race. So I think you heard it from him on live TV. So there's no question. Just expect him on the ballot paper. Don't think twice. Just look for no. Check for Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu and give the vote. Be there, protect the vote, and we shall have a new Uganda. We have looked at so many involvement of Uganda in around international news, but we are not seeing how happy Ugandans are, how better life or standard of life we are having in Uganda, because it is not making round the news. We are all suffering. Yeah.